Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Janavalabha Girivaradari Gopijanavalabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Yamunamai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai New Govardhan Dham Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, entitled Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter 31, Narada instructs the Prachetas. We're on text 6. So those of you who have devices, you could chant along. Those of you who don't, you could look at the other devices and also chant along if you like. So if everybody could please repeat after me. Yad Adishtam Bhagavata Shivena Dokshajena Cha Tad Griheshu Prasaktanam Prayashaha Chapitam Prabho Yad Adishtam Bhagavata Shivena Dokshajena Cha Tad Griheshu Prasaktanam Prayasha Chapitam Prabho Yad Adishtam Bhagavata Shivena Dokshajena Cha Tadgriheshu Prasaktanam Prayasha Chapitam Prabho Yad Adishtam Bhagavata Shivena Dokshajena Cha Tadgriheshu Prasaktanam Prayasha Chapitam Prabho Yet, what? Adishtam was instructed. Bhagavata, by the exalted personality. Shivena, Lord Shiva. Yadokshajena, by Lord Vishnu. Cha, also. Tat, that. Griheshu, to family affairs. Prasaktanam, by us who were too much attached. Prayashaha, almost. Chapitam, forgotten. Prabho, O Master. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. O Master, may we inform you that because of our being overly attached to family affairs, we almost forgot the instructions we received from Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu. Purport. Remaining in family life is a kind of concession for sense enjoyment. One should know that sense enjoyment is not required, but one has to accept sense enjoyment inasmuch as one has to live. As confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 10, Kamasya Nindriya Priti, one has to become a Goswami and control his senses. One should not simply use his senses for sense gratification, Rather, the senses should be employed just as much as required for maintaining body and soul together. Srila Rupa Goswami recommends Anasaktasya Vishayan Yatarham Upayunjata. One should not be attached to sense objects, but should accept sense enjoyment as much as required, no more. If one wishes to enjoy the senses more than required, he becomes attached to family life, which means bondage. All the Prachetas admitted their fault in remaining in household life. Om Jnanatimirandasya Kananjana Shalakaya Chakshulan Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karidvachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinitaranam Vancha Kapadrivishta Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, I'll read the translation again. O Master, may we inform you that because of our being overly attached to family affairs, we almost forgot the instructions we received from Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu. So when one is attached to this indriya priti, or this sense enjoyment of this material world, or trying to fulfill their material desires, that particular direction in which one is going, the indriya priti, or the sense enjoyment of this being attached to the material world, it hijacks one's consciousness to the degree that one forgets spiritual goals. Now, of course, people who are suffering less from these material desires and attachments and so on, they could remember spiritual goals, but it could get so bad where they just forget. Some people are so lost, they just can, their consciousness has become completely hijacked. So therefore Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita and throughout the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, he's warning us of the danger of letting our consciousness get hijacked by these different anarthas, or these different useless endeavors or qualities, right? Like lust, anger, greed. So these are the three gates leading to hell. It says a sane person or wise person gives them up. So he's warning us, and we're being warned over and over again in the Bhagavatam in so many places, that we shouldn't go down that road. And yeah, it just we could become completely lost. So therefore, to bridle it, to control it, to transcend it, is necessary and essential. And it's not that human life is, it's not that we're at the process of Krishna consciousness just focusing on negative, we need to get rid of our bad qualities, but we need to accept the positive, which is the way to get rid of these negative things. But So in this verse that in purport that specifically the verse Srila Prabhupada quotes refers to in the purport today, from Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 10, I'll just read that. Kamasya nendriya pritir labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jigyasa narto yash cheha karmabi. So this is the translation. Life's desires should never be directed toward sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation. Since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth, nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Purport. The completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed towards the fulfillment of desires and sense gratification. In such civilization, in all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification. In politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, and ultimately in religion or even in salvation, the very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant. In the political field, the leaders of men fight with one another to fulfill their personal sense gratification. The voters adore the so-called leaders only when they promise sense gratification. As soon as the voters are dissatisfied in their own sense gratification, they dethrone the leaders. The leaders must always disappoint the voters by not satisfying their senses. The same is applicable in all other fields. No one is serious about the problems of life. Even those who are on the path of salvation desire to become one with absolute truth and desire to commit spiritual suicide for sense gratification. But the Bhagavatam says that one should not live for sense gratification. One should satisfy the senses only inasmuch as required for self-preservation and not for sense gratification. Because the body is made of senses, which also require a certain amount of satisfaction, there are regulative directions for satisfaction of such senses. But the senses are not meant for unrestricted enjoyment. For example, marriage or the combination of a man with a woman is necessary for progeny, but it is not meant for sense enjoyment. Do you think you could close that door that's going into the... Please. For example, marriage or the combination of a man with a woman is necessary for progeny, but is not meant for sense enjoyment. In the absence of voluntary restraint, there is propaganda for family planning, but foolish men do not know that family planning is automatically executed as soon as there is search after the absolute truth. Seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagements in sense gratification because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth. In every sphere of life, therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth, and that sort of engagement will make one happy because he will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification. And what that absolute truth is explained as follows. Text 11. Vedanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yochkanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdite. Right, there's learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth called the non-dual substance Brahman, personal effulgence, Paramatma, Krishna in everybody's heart, or Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, personal aspect. So, with the conditioned, specifically the souls within human bodies, there is within the conditional, a strong tendency towards sense enjoyment, towards trying to enjoy without Krishna, materially. And for us who have taken to the process of Krishna consciousness, the lingering desires still may be there, and the tendency may be there, but again, it has to be controlled. It has to be transcended. And Srila Prabhupada, at the very end of the purport that I just read, he says that seekers of absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagements and sense gratification, because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth. So we have to become overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth. We have to become extremely busy in that. So a devotee, devotees should always be writing, reading, preaching, gardening, cooking, chanting, sweeping, always engaged in some type of service. Always be busy. And this will help us. This will help us greatly, and in that we'll become overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth. We'll be overwhelmed with engagements in Krishna consciousness, and therefore we won't have any time for these unnecessary engagements. Just like in India, when they were opening up India in the beginning, in the early days, Prabhupada brought his disciples over there from America and Europe, and so at one point, Tamal Krishna Goswami, before he was Goswami, he was married, and he was married for a very short time. So I don't know, like a year or something. And eventually, he wanted to take sannyas, and anyways, he was trying to get Prabhupada to agree, and eventually Prabhupada agreed to it. And his wife, his previous wife before, that was the last thing, she was young, and that was the last thing she wanted, but somehow Tamal Krishna Goswami did that, and Prabhupada allowed it. But she kept. I heard she put on white, and she remained like that throughout her life. She didn't remarry, but when he was there, he was a householder there, and he was a GBC there for India, and he was quite busy, because we were just starting in India, and he was really busy, and there was some sannyasis there, but the sannyasis didn't want to help manage. We're sannyasis, we're going to chant, we're practice our harmonium, and we're going to sing, and we're going to go out and preach and things like that. Let him manage. So he was doing everything. He was this and that, managing so many different things, and he was getting a little frustrated, a little disturbed. He didn't know, he was having a hard time handling it. So then he went to Prabhupada, and he said, "Prabhupada, I'm so busy, and the sannyasis are here. There's 3 or 4 sannyasis, and they said they don't want to help manage, and I'm the only one managing, and I'm having a hard time finding time to chant my rounds, and this and that, and so many." And he was going on and on and on. And he said he began to cry before Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada just started to laugh. Prabhupada started to laugh, and he said, "This is very good." He said, this is Krishna's mercy in you, this is Krishna's blessing, because you're so busy. He said, you have no time for Maya. This is Krishna's blessing. So, we should pray and hope and plan and put ourselves in, as far as we could do our part to put ourselves in a situation where we become really busy. Yeah, and again, this will help greatly. Or else it's like there's two things going on. There's Krishna consciousness, and then there's Maya consciousness. That's the two options. Different varieties of Krishna consciousness, and there's different varieties of Maya consciousness. So, if we don't become overwhelmed, then by nature's law, we'll be forced to remain in the gutter of material existence. So Krishna consciousness, it allows us to get our minds out of the gutter, to get our consciousness out of the gutter. Which, again, we have our minds in the gutter, different types of gutters, or we have our minds in Krishna consciousness. And it's for example, we can get absorbed, we become attached, we become addicted to kirtan, to relishing the holy name of Krishna in Krishna consciousness. And without that attachment, without that addiction, then we just become attracted to a bunch of other nonsense music. Not a bunch of other, but we become attached to other nonsense music, dealing with this material world and all the different, I don't know. A lot of the times they don't use instruments nowadays, but it's electronical music or whatever. This music, that music, so many different music has nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said cinema songs, which most of these songs are, just talking about sense gratification. Practically all, you say all of them. And if we don't become attached to devotee association, then we want to seek out some other associations, one of the secrets of for those who want to continue as in the brahmacharya ashram for even some time, even if someone doesn't want to go, 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 year, 30 year, they want to go the whole course or whatever, devotees will be able to do that if they have friendship. They have other friendship within the ashram. Close friendship. That's a way, very important way, to be happy in Krishna consciousness. Or else, we'll seek other type of fulfillment, other type of happiness through friendships with non-devotees. So whether it's music or whether it's food, we have to become attached to prasadam. Else be, seeking so much other things, right? There's so many restaurants in town. So many restaurants, so many things to see and taste and touch and hear, right? Meditate on. There's so many things. So we have to become attached to Krishna consciousness, engaging our senses in Krishna service. We have to become attached. Or else, again, it's just by nature we'll be forced to engage otherwise. And therefore, that's why we have the Bhagavatam class every morning. Like here it says, in every overwhelmed with the work of research in the absolute truth. Serious students seeking the absolute truth, they're always overwhelmed with the work of research in the absolute truth. So we're having Bhagavatam class every morning, Bhagavad Gita class every evening. We are, reading so many books. We are hearing so many lectures. We should be hearing so many lectures in our free time. We're speaking so much about the topics of Krishna consciousness. We're trying to speak to others about the topics of Krishna consciousness. Why are we doing this? It's not a blind ritual. It's not a meaningless ritual. It's not a mindless ritual. It is our life. The Bhagavatam is our life. Means we have to make the Bhagavatam our life. Hearing the Bhagavatam, talking about the Bhagavatam, speaking the Bhagavatam, distributing the Bhagavatam, book distribution. We make the Bhagavatam our life. And that is the real life of a devotee, the Bhagavatam. Of course, management is there. We have to manage so much men and money and buildings, but managing men and money and buildings without getting a taste for the Bhagavatam just leads to degradation, really. In the sense that one won't be able to factually remain on the spiritual platform. One will have to descend to the gutter platform. The cesspool of material sense of material existence. So we should try to apply ourselves in the Bhagavatam class, in the Bhagavad Gita class, apply our intelligence to reading Srila Prabhupada's books, first and foremost. I mean, it's not that I read the first... Anyways, sorry, but I saw an advertisement the other day in the devotee world, and I didn't agree with it, so I'll just put it out there because I thought it was a little inappropriate. But said, somebody was teaching somebody's teaching a course on the Ujjvala Nilamani, which Ujjvala Nilamani is a book all about the Shringar Ras, the conjugal mellows, the relationships between the gopis and Krishna, which is essential. This book is essential. It's written by our Acharya Rupa Goswami. It is, amazing book. The different types of gopis and the groups and this and that, and it's amazing. It's wonderful, the most wonderful. But this advertisement was this devotee, and nothing against him and whoever he is, but I don't know him, but I thought it was inappropriate that it's, if you read the first canto and second canto of the Bhagavatam and some other of Prabhupada's books, that's like the preliminary entrance into this study of the Ujjvala Nilamani. But it's like, you should read the whole Bhagavatam, and you should read the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, not just the first two cantos, and then maybe go to the Ujjvala Nilamani. Not sure how we went. No, huh? Anyways, So yeah, we should apply ourselves to reading, first and foremost, Srila Prabhupada's books. That's the point. First and foremost, Srila Prabhupada's books. And then that will be a sure way in which we could be able to understand other books when the time arises for that. And it says in the fourth canto, Srila Prabhupada says that anyone who is preaching the message of Bhagavatam and the message of Bhagavad Gita, it's very easily for them to get out of the clutches of Maya. It's a lot more easier for them to do that. So this is Srila Prabhupada's life, the Bhagavatam. He spent so much energy, so much time, even up to the last days of his life, translating and commenting on the Bhagavatam. He traveled the whole world, right, every morning, speaking from the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada's quoting from the Bhagavatam in his preaching over and over and over again. So he's wanting us to imbibe the message of the Bhagavatam. And by doing that, we'll be able to actually not be forgetful, which is very important. Like it says here, if we're overly attached to family affairs or whatever affairs of this material world, then what happens? He said we almost forgot the instructions received from Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu. So they said they almost forgot. But if we really become overly attached, then yeah, we'll almost forget, or we'll forget at times, or we'll completely forget. People forget all the time. Like the Tirthamaj told me he was out doing book distribution one time, and he said it was bizarre. He said that there was I mentioned this before, but he was out on book distribution. He talked with this lady out there, and he said, giving her a book, and then she said, "Oh yeah, I used to live in the temple for some months, 6 months or a year." She chanted Hare Krishna every day, 16 rounds or whatever. And she asked him, what's that? How do you say that mantra again? Hare Krishna. How does it go again? What's the order? She didn't remember the order. Amazing. So we could become really forgetful. But if we try to imbibe the message of the Bhagavatam, really apply ourselves in the classes and reading and distributing, then it will help us remember the instructions of Krishna and the instructions of our spiritual master. And in this way, by doing this, by trying to really apply ourselves to the Bhagavatam in different ways, we'll be able to not be forgetful, and we'll be able to actually not be swallowed by illusion. Just like Prabhupada says here in the purport that family life, remaining family life, is a kind of concession for sense enjoyment. So the ability not to fall, not to be swallowed by sense enjoyment within family life or within any life is possible by applying ourselves to the Bhagavatam, right? Just like Bhajanarayan Swami quotes every time which is our very means of conquest, hearing the Bhagavatam. So this is our very means of success. And just as a devotee, he doesn't live, or she doesn't live for sense enjoyment. He doesn't live for sense gratification. They live for the Bhagavatam, to preach the Bhagavatam, to hear the Bhagavatam. That's what they live for. To relish, right? What is this verse in the Rasi Bhavika? Oh no, I'm thinking about in the Bhagavatam. What's it? You should relish the Bhagavatam. Huh? No. What is it? Anyways, I think it's in the very beginning here. Oh, there's some long purport there Prabhupada gives. Okay, there it is. Nigamakalpataro galitam palam sukamakadam rita dravasam yutam pabita bhagavatam rasamalayam mahoraho rasika bhuvi bhavaka. Oh, expert and thoughtful men. Okay, women who are listening too. You too. Relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadev Goswami. Therefore this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, included liberated souls. So it's not that, oh, we're just kind of attending the Bhagavatam to kind of like free ourselves from illusion, and then when we become free from illusion, then no more Bhagavatam. And we don't have to, I transcended Bhagavatam. Right? But no, it says it's relishable for all, including liberated souls. So once we become liberated, we go on hearing the Bhagavatam at all times. Yeah, that's when the hearing begins. That's when the relishing begins. So yeah, we should try to take it seriously. And in this way, yeah, again, we won't be swallowed by all these desires for sense gratification. And yeah, we should become a Goswami. Goswami, master of the senses. So it doesn't necessarily mean that one has to formally accept the title of Goswami by accepting the renowned sort of life or something, but one should become Goswami, controller of our senses. And this is the way, by becoming Goswami, by engaging our senses in Krishna service, this is the best thing we could do. This is the best service we could provide, we could give to our spiritual master. Applying the Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing, preaching, reading, of course chanting Hare Krishna. This becoming a Goswami, preaching, this is the best thing we could do. This is what the spiritual master wants. He wants an army full of Bhagavats. He wants an army full of Bhagavats, army full of, there's a book Bhagavat and there's a person Bhagavat. It says the same, right? So he wants an army full of Bhagavats. He wants an army full of fully realized, liberated souls. Why? To traverse the planet, to traverse SanDiego, to help deliver the conditioned souls from illusion. But without hearing the Bhagavatam, then yeah, it's all very, our attempts to preach and our attempts to end Krishna conscious are all very mental or sensual. Means rajasic, tamasic, almost you could say it's missing the point. So, all right, does anybody have any? And mostly I'm, by the way, mostly speaking to myself here. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Ravi, Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the very nice class.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, like as you have rightly pointed out, having association of Bhagavatam is the most critical thing. I'm talking on behalf of people not staying in the temple.
Yes.
You could easily see that you are drawn into so many anxieties. He said that to me, I said that to you, and you're overly absorbed. But night time you again open Bhagavatam and read Prabhupada's purports. and you can forget everything, all that nonsense,
Yes.
and you can again focus on what Prabhupada is explaining us through the Bhagavatam,
Yes.
and lead a happy, peaceful life.
Yes.
People say about so many things how to be happy, peaceful, but one of the preliminary steps is to read the Bhagavatam and absorb ourselves in Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, people, we could, you could say, escape into Prabhupada's books. Good escape. Of course, we're, really entering reality, but, by reading Prabhupada's books, but, yeah, there's a lot. I mean, like you're saying, for those devotees who are living outside of the temple and devotees living in the temple, there's a lot of ways to get distracted. So, yeah, to open Srila Prabhupada's books and to try to apply ourselves is so important. I mean, Prabhupada said the purports are his transcendental ecstasies. Means they're coming, from Srila Prabhupada's heart. He's pouring his heart onto the pages of these books, Bhagavatam and transcendental ecstasies. And therefore he wanted devotees to take it seriously, because he put a lot of work into it. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. Some devotee, he told me, I won't tell you who he is, but he's quite a senior devotee, Prabhupada disciple, preacher. He told me that for 20 years, he said he couldn't get into the Bhagavad Gita. For 20 years, he couldn't enter the message of the Bhagavad Gita. He said every time he would read it, he would say it would put him to sleep. Just fall asleep. He said he couldn't get into it. But then he said one day, you know what? I'm going to crack this. I'm going to crack this book, and I'm going to really try to get into it. He was trying to apply himself. And yeah, he opened it up. He really, and then he started to relish the Bhagavad Gita. And he was able to get into it, experience the nectar of the Bhagavad Gita. So, who knows? Sometimes we have these kind of blocks, right? That's one example, but there's other examples, whether it be chanting the holy name, and because sometimes people think, I'm chanting. It's like, you know what? I'm sick of chanting inattentively. I'm sick of this, and just really, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to apply myself. I'm going to pray. I'm going to really put out as much energy. I'm going to try to do whatever I can to chant attentively. Or whether it's reading the Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita or whatever it is. So yeah, that's there too. But yeah, there are so many distractions, like you're saying, Ravi, and to open the books is important, because it's actually what nourishes the devotee. As we read the other day, every devotee within the International Society for Krishna Consciousness should read all the books that have been translated, or else they would just eat and sleep. And what else? Fall down and miss the opportunity for human life, the spiritual opportunity of human life. So, drops of water wear away stone. Gradually we could go through so many books. So, all right. Does anybody have any other? Also, so many audiobooks. Amala Bhakta Swami, Keshav Bharati Goswami. He has, we're out gardening, or we're driving around, or we're running, or walking, or whatever we're doing. We can listen to Prabhupada's books too. Yes, Rajendranan Prabhu.
I always find it very, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice insights. I always find it very interesting when the pure devotees express themselves as having almost completely forgotten the Lord because we're so materially attached.
Yeah.
And Srila Prabhupada will, in the purport, elaborate so that we can take lesson, that certainly this would be possible for us, is possible, if not actually being experienced. But, and just previously in the, what verse was it? Text number 3, just 3 verses back, it was talking about how they had completely, they gave up their kingly duties, they entered Vanaprastha, and they started doing their pranayama again, meditating and become absorbed in the form of the Lord, and they completely became free of all material contamination. So it can be quite bewildering if you're in the association of a devotee. Last night I was talking to Jananivas Prabhu, and the last 2 calls he's just been really, you can see that he's churning this mood that he's very fallen. And I've told you before, I don't go against the mood of an advanced devotee. If anything, I'd like to support and maybe learn and enter into it. But I think it's worth noting that the pure devotees, the more advanced they become, the more they will actually feel and express themselves as being what we really are. And it's kind of important to understand that about these advanced devotees.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this, right, like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who's nourishing the whole world, right, through the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this most valuable literature. He says, "Oh, I am lower than Jaga and Madai. I'm more sinful than Jaga and Madai. Anybody who repeats my name, they lose, piety." And he says, "I'm lower than the worm and stool." Amazing. So of course, he is extremely humble, and he, means what he says. It's not a show by any means. But yeah, I mean, it's an important realization or important, mood to have. I'm fallen. And in Kali Yuga, it's easy to feel that way. I'm fallen, and sometimes devotees ask you, "Hey, got any recent realizations, Prabhu?" I haven't heard that recently, but sometimes it was a common thing in the past. For some reason, devotees would ask a lot, "Got any? What's your recent realization?" So he says, I've been practicing Krishna consciousness, or trying to practice Krishna consciousness for whatever, 10, 15, whatever, 20 years, or however long we've been trying to practice. And said, I have a realization, I'm just a fool. I'm just a fallen, conditioned soul, and it's only by, the mercy of my spiritual master, the mercy of the devotees, that I'm able to even do anything in Krishna consciousness. So, but it's an important realization to have, because it's a good platform to preach Krishna consciousness, and also to it's just that's what it means to be a Vaishnava. You have that humility, or at least try to follow the Vaishnavas by having that humility.
Can I share another verse in that regard?
Yeah.
By Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. It's Antya Leela, chapter 5, text number 1. It goes, "I'm infected by the germs of material activity and am suffering from the boils of envy. Therefore, falling in an ocean of humility, I take shelter of the great physician, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Wow, so poetic. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, right? Kaviraj, poet. So, all right. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.